watch Hatate and the touching the ball. It just reminded me so much of Shinsuke Nakamura, who was here and could be a cult figure like that, is he?
No, he's Ryo Hatate, mate. He'll make his own mark, and he's a very talented young player, but he's a very determined young man. He's they're all different, like I said, and he's one that he's got his eyes on reaching the very top in football. And
hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host Jared, and joining me tonight are John, Liam, and Sean. How are you, John?
I'm good, Jared. That was very good. I enjoyed that little intro. That was good.
You had to.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Just getting back into the swing of things here. So, yeah, I'm good.
You look more awake this week after last week, where you look like
absolutely.
You knocked off halfway through, had the head wobbles and everything.
Yeah, that was definitely some strong jet lag. But yeah, I'm back into the Australian time now. So.
And how are you, Liam?
Yep, good, Jared. Absolutely delighted to see all the extra coverage that Celtic are getting in the press here in Japan this week. We're becoming quite a big name over here now.
That's what we like. We're going to get into that a bit later on because I wanted to throw to you in particular about the game after yesterday's performances. But before we do that, Sean, how's things over in Perth at your neck of the woods? Were you out on the boat cruise like all the other crazy Celtic fans or not?
No, I got dragged away for my missus' birthday, so that was a pain in the dick. I would have had 2 tickets for the boat cruise and everything. But yeah, COVID's kicking off here, so that's good timing that they got that done. And my little Microsoft weather app in the bottom right corner has a picture of the sun with a red exclamation mark on it, which I think means call your relatives, your elderly relatives, and check they're not dead.
Yeah, I got the same one over here, mate. But yeah, how unfortunate, how rude of your missus to have been born on that day, like to get you away at the boat cruise. Like, how bloody rude, huh?
Yeah, I know. Looked good as well.
Seen all sorts of videos kicking around there, but yeah, great to see, guys. Keep it up. It's we're all living in a wonderful time and place over here, in particular in Australia and Japan, with the Japanese players getting the job done and the Aussie guy, Big Ange, running the show at Celtic Park. It's amazing. So never had so much fun as a Celtic fan in my life, I reckon. It's right up there with the Invincible treble season so far. But we'll crack on into the podcast. So those who are watching, listening to the podcast at a later date, thanks for tuning in. Just if you haven't done so, please subscribe to us on YouTube and via the podcast app that you listen to your podcasts on. If you're on Instagram, you can find us on there at Celtic Down. On Facebook, we've got a page and a group, Celtic Down Under. Pretty easy to find. Just look for the Celtic logo with the boxing kangaroo over the top. You can pretty much see it all over the screens if you're watching this on YouTube. But yeah, get involved. So, Celtic 2, Hibs 0. I'll throw to you first, Sean, for your take on the game. But the first thing I want to do with the game was, for me, when I saw the lineup, first thing was compare the bench to our last game against St. Johnstone. So if I go through that, Sorrow, Wollongolly, Mullen, Dawson, Montgomery, Moffat, Doak. All right. This game, when my phone decides to load, because I just decided to have a little bit of a glitch. Scales, Giakoumakis, McCarthy, Jota, Johnson, Hitaguchi, Bain, Ralston, Welsh. Every single one of them could be a starting quality player for us, except for probably Bain. So what was your thoughts when you saw the game? When you saw the lineup and then going into the game? And Sean's dropped out, so we'll go to you, John.
Perfectly timed. I thought, yeah, you're absolutely right. For the first time in a long time, I think we've finally had that real strength and depth on the bench, which is a really encouraging sign. I mean, and if anything as well, what we actually have is not only, like you're saying, the potential first team members on the bench. We actually have players that might have different skills and different utilities, which is really important. I mean, look, we'll talk about it in a bit, but when Giakoumakis came on, completely different player than Medea. And that really, changed the game as far as his play completely. which is what we want, right? We want a team that has the adaptability. Is a game going this way? Has the opposition changed their formation or tactics in this way? Well, we can respond in a different. So it's really, really good to see, which is what we wanted from a January transfer window, right? We actually wanted the Celtic board to back the vision that Ange had and to implement it, right? To give him the resources and give him the players that he needs. It's starting to sound like that's what we've got, right? And especially with the other things as well, with these sports scientists coming in and stuff. So I was really encouraged, and that just reflected entirely with the way that we played in that game, because I think we played absolutely fantastic. I don't know about you guys, but I think especially over the socials, speaking to family, there's a real buzz about Celtic right now. Everybody, the media is talking about us. We're getting dead excited. I do think the second half of our season is going to be really encouraging, even if it might not be what most of us want, which is winning the league. There is such a buzz. There is such a excitement about this second half of the season. I thought some of these, obviously, what a start from Hatate, right? 4 minutes in and he scores a goal. And he was in exactly the right place. He was exactly the right position. It's all you needed. Heavy metal football, pressing really high, winning the ball back, straight into your striker, bang, goal. That's everything you wanted to see. Hatate, oh my Christ, if he continues that up, he really is, for 1.5 or 1.3 or whatever it is million that we bought him for, that could be the signing of the season for us. A fantastic game. Overall, really impressed with everybody's game. But yeah, the two new boys, fantastic.
Before we jump to you, Liam, I'll just jump in quickly because I know you with the Japanese side you've got going on there. There's going to be a fair bit to talk about. But yeah, for me, I looked at it, as you said, John, the bench, and why I brought that up, there's potential game changers there. There's guys now that we've got that we can bring on and actually make a difference. And
Absolutely.
that, to me, is an amazing thing to have, especially with how the squad was pretty threadbare. So, yeah, it's good to see. Getting some guys back from injury and then the new guys coming in. Hatate, what a player. He's going to be one hell of a signing for us already. He gives us something we didn't have in the midfield. People are saying he replaces Christie. I see him more as an Armstrong type for us, in that he's replacing the Armstrong that we never replaced in the squad. So, yeah, good player. Happy to see him. Liam's got his thinking cap on at the moment, just looking at his face here. So, we'll throw it over to you, Liam.
Well, it's... I knew Daizen Maeda would make an impact for Celtic, but I didn't think it would be as quickly as 4 minutes. that was something special. And the thing is, you can already see after just one game what I was saying about him being as effective, but a different type of player to Kyogo, in the sense that he was a constant nuisance to their defence. Hibs' defence never got a minute's peace with him. He was constantly harrying, trying to win tackles, and not just his goal, but if you remember in the second half, he set one up for Hatate as well. That was almost a third goal. Really delighted for him. Hatate is the one that has really, he's the one everybody's raving about, and that's what's really pleasantly surprised me, because I didn't. Of the three players, he was the one that I knew the least about going into this window. But he was the one that I've got a friend who is a Kawasaki Frontale fan who assured me this guy's the real deal. So it was really great to see that he was clearly the man of the match. And that little video, which I'm sure you've seen of the moment when he finds out that he was man of the match, is well worth a watch. It's a joy to see, it really was. And it's amazing to have people who I never even knew were into football at all at work are coming up to me and saying like, "Oh, you're a Celtic supporter, aren't you? You've just signed four Japanese players now, haven't you?" I said, yep. Well, how are they doing? I said, well, they're doing well, and I think we're probably going to win the league this year. I'm like, oh, really? That's great, And it's the impact that we are going to have with these players is just. Celtic are back on the map in Japan. Not since the days of Nakamura have we been anywhere near this level of coverage. Even then, I don't think we were getting as much coverage then as we are now, because we have the core of what's possibly going to form the core of Japan's World Cup team next year, all playing for Celtic now, which is quite an incredible thing to think about, really.
Come on, Liam. He's Rio Hatate, mate. Yeah, Nakamura. We all know that. So Sean, before you had your computer problems, I threw to you, saying, what do you think of the game when you saw the lineup and overall thoughts on the game? So jump in now and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, it was good. Celtic teased that Maeda would be starting with their announcement of the times and place of the game, and they had Maeda as the featured player, so that generally means that he's going to be playing. So I stuck him on as my vice captain in fantasy football, so that was a nice restart. I actually think he wasn't particularly involved, to be honest, in the rest of the game. He did a lot of closing down, but it was the kind of Kyogo style performance where he gets like 7 or 8 touches in the game, but it doesn't matter. He's all over. I mean, that's the role, he's all over the defence, the keeper, not giving them a minute's peace and being on the end of it when he needs to be on the end of it. And that's fine. That's the Kyogo role. I'd be interested to see what happens when Kyogo's back, what's going to happen with those two, whether we play 2 up front or whether one of them comes out to the wing. Who would you say, Liam? Would it be Maeda come out?
Maeda would be better. Would make a better winger than Kyogo, I think, because he played on the wing quite a lot with Yamaga, which was the local team that he used to play for over here, and I've seen that he can do that really well. So. Probably more effective out there than Kyogo was based on that one game against the Huns. So yeah, definitely.
Sean, I'd be putting Forrest over on the right, put Maeda out on the left, and Kyogo back in the middle. That's what I'd be looking at doing, and putting Abada on the bench.
Mm-hmm. And
even if Jota is back fully fit, you could play him out on the right. So there's plenty of options.
Well, when I was looking at Jota last night, I'd made him my captain in the fantasy football, and I was a bit pissed that he only played 5 minutes. But also, the main thing I'm thinking is, as long as we have the goal is to get him up to speed for when we play Sevco, and whatever else happens between now and then for Jota is incidental. I just want him running at those Sevco fullbacks. He will absolutely rinse them. They're going to be skid marks all over the pitch, and not just from the boots. It's going to be like that 6-2 game where Fernando Rickson got subbed after 25 minutes when Bobby Petr rinsed him.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to see how Tavernier handles him. Let's be honest here.
Yeah,
because all the hype on how good he is, but he doesn't actually defend. So if you've got our guys pressing the living shit out of him, and then all over him, he's actually going to have to defend. Could be a long night for him.
I actually thought Forrest started quite brightly last night, but he faded away. Abada was okay. But yeah, we could have had more with Jota on the wing and maybe somebody else. Midfield were excellent. We were very, very good in the first half. Hibs actually came and had a goal. They should have been 1-0 up. That was because I was just saying, we've looked good in these first 2 minutes, and then they hit the post from an open goal. That really should have been a goal. I mean, Abada should have had a goal. That one that was wrongly flagged offside. But yeah, Hatate was outstanding. Like, you could see it 5 minutes in, you're like, this guy's a player. And everyone was the comparison that I made was Callum McGregor. But then as I watched the game, I literally couldn't figure out if he was left or right footed. I was like, I need this guy to take a set piece so I can figure out if he's left or right footed, because he's just pinging the ball with both feet. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's putting a through ball on his left, and then he hit a volley that the keeper did well to save with his right. And I was like, right, okay. So we've definitely got a player here. And you hear from that Ange interview afterwards, like, that Hatate is obviously coming in with ambitions to go to another level. So that's interesting. So we'll probably only get a year and a half out of him. And if he gives us the title this year and Champions League performance next year, then that's fine. And
we'll make a killing selling him on.
Yeah, exactly. And leaves us with an 8-figure, in the bank. I'm not going to crown him after one game, but that's certainly the ambition now. That's the stand. That's the expectation has been set early. Sometimes players come in, do brilliant in one game, and then disappear like Juninho, but the expectation is now set, and he has to live up to that.
Something you said there, Sean, about Hibs coming and actually playing. I wanted to point out something on the stats. It's the first game this season that we haven't had the majority of possession. It's also the first game this season that we've been outpassed. So Hibs had 592 passes to our 507, and they had 54% possession to our 46. But we had 21 shots, 5 on goal. They had 5 shots, none on target. So with that in mind, John, something you said on last week's pod was it'd be interesting to see how Hibs play with Sean Maloney running the show. What was your thoughts on the way Hibs played? Was that what you were expecting from Sean Maloney's team?
Well, I think it's probably too early for me to say this is. I can understand what the Sean Maloney Hibs will look like, but it was probably more indicative of a better Hibs. I think probably where Hibs are just now is a bit it's not where I would expect them to be. I'd probably say they should have been maybe where the Aberdeen or Motherwell positions are. That's just where, if I was to, tell you what the top 6 teams are, I would probably, arrange it in that sort of order, especially with like recent performances and stuff. So I would say it's probably back to the Hibs that I know, back to the Hibs that we've seen in recent times, past 5 years or so. But what exactly Maloney's Hibs look like, I'm not entirely sure. What I do know is they played very intensively, which is what you'd expect when you get a new manager in. A lot of the players were out there to prove something. I thought Nisbet had an okay game, to be honest. Like it's not to say that he's not a bad player. Whether I believe he's Celtic quality or not, because I know that's obviously a debate we've had before. I'm not entirely sure, but he's still a good player. So yeah, look, it was everything that I thought probably would have happened with a new manager coming in at any team. A lot of players coming out to prove something and stuff. So it was just actually a joy to watch, because it was both teams playing as intensively as they could, and it was even better than we won.
So what I was going to bring up was Nisbet and Boyle.
Don't say it.
We keep being linked to those guys, and all I'm going to say is Maeda.
Yeah, it's gone. I think the opportunity's passed.
He's come in, and with what he's done just from one game, it's not going to happen with Nisbet coming to us, and I'm glad it's not. And Boyle, you pay $3 million for him. That's the one, $3.5 million for him. Yet you can pick up a Hatate for what, 1.4, 1.5 million. Yeah, not going to happen. So
if we were to get
I hope
Boyle,
those guys stay at Hibs for the simple fact that they'll take points off other clubs.
Yeah, that's what you're. I mean, you're hoping most other teams do that as well. The only way that I'd ever say, okay, right, Boyle makes sense, is if it's like $1 million, $1.5 million, maybe, and it's like the Johnny Hayes type of role, where it's someone who just, is a squad player, does well in the league, but isn't really gonna, not gonna push it on. It's more plug in a hole sort of stuff. Apart from that, I don't really see the point, to be honest.
Yeah, so even though Hatate was clearly the best player last night, I thought that to have the competition for man of the match between him and Maeda was a bit narrative. I don't think Maeda was the second best player on the pitch. I would have given that to Juranovic, who was everywhere. He was up and down, and he defended excellent. And there was one where he put in a great block, kind of almost last ditch. And the other player that was great, and again, I'm going to say this begrudgingly because he is Jozo Simeonovic. He's Jozo Simeonovic. Honestly, if you put together a highlight reel of either of those players, it's the same. Starfelt had a good game. That hurt. And
you're all right, Sean? You're okay? You don't have a nosebleed or anything for admitting that? Because it was funny in that group chat. I commented that at halftime, and it got absolute crickets. There was nothing.
Yeah, I was not acknowledging.
And I'm like, Sean's not acknowledging this just yet. I just, is he rocking in a straight jacket going, oh, this can't be right? What's going on here?
Look, it happens sometimes. A broken clock is right twice a day. But The other player I thought the player that had the poorest game in the pitch was actually Greg Taylor. I thought he was pretty poor overall for the game. So I don't know if I'd fancy having Juranovic back over on the left and Ralston back in the team once we not for our growth, but once we get back into serious business.
If we're going on the assumption that Hatate is going to be playing in the centre of midfield moving forward, then yeah, definitely. Because I was actually quite surprised that he played where he played, because based on what I'd seen of him, albeit limited, he had played as a left back for most of the last season. So I thought that was where Celtic were recruiting him for, but clearly Ange has better ideas than me and put him in the midfield. So yeah, probably moving Juranovic over to the left might be the way to go.
I do think he gets lost a bit out there, Juranovic, when he's out on the left. I do think he's better when he plays in his natural position. Yeah,
probably moving Juranovic.
Yeah, but then Ralston's in the team, so like.
Yeah, I know. It's a really good problem to have, right? Look, and the biggest problem is probably Greg Taylor's not quite where we want that position to be. We definitely think that. I think we said this last week, Jared. We were talking about the weakest position we have now is probably the left back role. But it's a good problem to have, right? Well, do we leave Juranovic where he is and then not have Ralston on, or to bring him over and get less out of him and bring Raul Chops on? I think it's a good problem. I
can see that Damien on Facebook is slaughtering Tom Rogic. He's obviously not realised he's listening to our Australian podcast.
As soon as posts, I'm like, that's got to be Damo at the wind-up. Hey, mate, pull your head in. All right, mate. We love you, buddy. Continue.
No, we're just saying, like, it's a good problem to have with Greg Taylor. Look, is he the best? Is he the best we can get where we are just now? Probably, right? But maybe it's more of a summer problem. I wouldn't suggest that we would need to change that position in January. I think he's got plenty enough attributes to see us through to the summer, and even then, he'd be a very good squad player to have.
The problem is, because we had Kieran Tierney before, who was and still is one of the best left backs in Britain, and possibly one of the best left backs in Scotland of the last 30 years. You know, any player that comes into that position is going to be unfairly compared to him, and we're not going to get another Kieran Tierney anytime soon.
Got one for you, Liam. Just on that thought, who replaced Danny McGrain?
Who replaced Danny McGrain?
Yeah, when he moves on.
Oh, to be in the mid-80s.
No, later than that.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
Tom Boyd. The reason I'm saying that is because of how dominant and how one club player and that he is. Whoever came in and replaced Danny McGrain would have copped the exact same shit that Taylor's copping now. So that's the way I'm thinking with what you're saying about the whole Tierney situation.
Aye, well, if I remember right, McGrain retired around about 85 or 86, and we signed Tom Boyd in, I think, 92, and I think it was only then that he was the first player that actually got seen as a proper sort of how can I put, an heir to Danny McGrain, you know, because I think before then every defender that we signed was kind of getting unfavourably compared. And, obviously Danny McGrain's still 10 times the player Tom Boyd ever was, but Tom Boyd was a very good player at what he did, and I think he was able to carve his own niche. Scenario. Yeah.
But then, do you not think it's fair then maybe to not whoever is in the left back position, instead of comparing them to Tierney, you compare who's ever in it to who we would say is our best right back at the moment, which is Juranovic. Is Greg Taylor any better or worse than Juranovic? I'd say he's worse. So that's just the fairest way of comparing it. So we have to find some.
If you started the season, John, if you said that comparing Taylor to Ralston, who was our right back at the start before he signed Juranovic, going into the season, you would have said, yeah, that's about right, or Taylor's better. But now, as I said, unlike it was last week's pod or the one before, next off-season, we win the league, we get into the Champions League, we need to upgrade that position as a priority.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just and if anything, we're not trying to replace Tierney. We're just trying to make the back four more balanced. That's basically I think that's the fairest thing we can say now. We're never going to get the next Tierney. We've tried to have a situation where we've looked at Tierney's attributes and we've tried to get two players, one for the defensive side and one for the attacking side. That's not really worked out. So let's just find somebody who matches the skills of the level that Juranovic is. I think that's the best we can do.
And my Wikipedia sleuthing tells me that the people that came in after Danny McGrain were Anton Rogan and Derek White.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
That sounds like very much like a Bolingoli, Greg Taylor situation.
To me, that sounds like if you knew that going into a one of those nights where a quiz or whatever it's called, that would be the mic drop. You've just won the whole comp.
Yeah.
So talking about our squad depth, right? I've got this little picture that was seen coming up, right? So if we go through it at the moment, goalkeepers. Yeah, Joe Hart, Scott Bain, Barkers, Connor Hazard. Well, we'll talk about Hazard a bit later on. Right backs, you got Juranovic, Ralston, Uragiri. Centre backs, Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Julian Welsh. Left backs, Taylor, Scales, Monty, Bolingoli. Centre mids, McGregor, Itaguchi, Bitton, McCarthy, Sorrow. Attacking mids, Rogic, Turnbull, Hatate. Right wingers, Abada, Forrest, Karamoko, Owen Moffat. Left wingers, Jota, Maeda, Mikey. Forwards, you've got Kyogo, Giacomakis, Ayeti. And then do we go to the young kids there with like Kenny and the other guy who played, can't remember his name at the moment, the young guy with the red hair. Like, he played in the last game against St Johnson. So there's options there. Realistically, I think if we look at it, we're good at every position. As I said last week, it's that backup goalkeeper position for me that is the main alarm bells. If we have to play, if Hart gets hurt or gets suspended or whatever, we got to go with Bain in goals. If it's Cabbage Hands or Bain, I'm not going to be happy with either.
Postecoglou started transitioning Owolayemi into the first team. He's now training with the first team.
Good. I heard that, and I can't pronounce his name. That's why I was leaving it, hoping you'd say it, or someone. But that's a good long-term thing. But yeah,
but he did. He said that there was an interview, and he was specifically asked about. It was one of the Celtic fan media asked Postecoglou about Owolayemi specifically. That was too many words in a row there. And he did say, look, he's the inheritance plan. This is our plan for the next few years. We need him to start getting used to it now, and then he'll be the first team guy in the next few years.
So just touching on the goalkeeping situation then, Scott Bain got a new contract. Why? To me, why?
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. He's probably happy to cut the check, sit there, be the third stringer. Fine. But I'm not a massive fan, never have been. Connor Hazard's gone on loan to HJK Helsinki for the whole of 2022 for their season. I think they're going for their third straight league title, so that's a good spot to be in terms of the way we play. We're always going for a league title. There's pressure. He's going to be in the same situation there. So I think that's a good move for him. Any of you boys got anything you want to add on either of those two moves?
Well, I think it's a bit mad, though, that if that is what Andrew's saying, that he's just disregarded Hazard. Because I think we all thought he was there's definitely a player there, right? He's got a mistake in him, but I thought Hazard's quite a good player.
I thought that Hazard was, penalty shootout heroics are one thing, but that then kind of glosses over the fact that he sold at least two of the goals in that game as well that got us to the penalty shootout. So I was not convinced because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, he's a young boy. He's a young boy." It's like, no, he's like 22 or 23 now. At this age, you should be emerging at this point if you're going to emerge, and I'm not sure if he is at Celtic's level, to be quite honest. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think we're better to go with, for the time being, Joe Hart is our man, and I think Scott Bain is a perfectly capable Scottish League level, apart from Rangers, deputy.
I think the reason why Bain probably got a contract for however long it is so we don't have a situation we've just had previously where we don't have any keeper. Right? We've had to go get Cam a chance. I think that's basically what I'm trying to do there.
If you look back historically, Celtic have got quite a long run. You know, it goes back to the Martin O'Neill era, really, actually, of having two quite senior, seasoned goalkeepers. You know, we had at the same time that we had Rab Douglas, we had Jonathan Gould. Before that, we had Dimitri Karin,
Magnus Hedman.
More recently, who was the Polish guy? Zaluska, yeah. You know, these were all keepers that were 30 or 30 plus when they came to us, and they never really established themselves as the number one. But Craig Gordon's another one, but Craig Gordon was our number one for a while, whereas none of these guys ever really cracked it. So.
Who was that guy Rogers brought in again from Nottingham Forest?
That's who I was trying to think of.
Doris De Vries.
There's another one.
Right.
Yeah. I'd be better off with Doris Day, I think. Anyway.
Well, if you look at what the EPL teams they do, the big teams is they always sign the third choice keeper is always someone in their mid 30s that's happy to just not play and collect a wage.
Aye. Man United did it with Andy Gorham, sure, if you remember.
They still do now. They signed someone this season. I can't remember who it was. From Nottingham Forest or somebody. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, just not a massive fan of Bain myself, so I was a little surprised he got that. Hazard's move, great. Oluwayemi, did I get it right, Sean?
Close enough.
Right. Yeah.
I'll get there one day. And by then he'll probably be Joe Hart will probably have retired. So hope his development goes well. And yeah, well, if things keep going the way they are, which is what I was going to throw to now, could be interesting. Liam, you said earlier we're going to win the league. Mm-hmm. Well, Rangers dropped some points at Aberdeen. The gap's now down to 4 points thanks to Bruni and company. How about old idiot getting sent off and Bruni's giving him a little send off? How good was that? Winding him up. I love it.
15 years and counting. He lives rent free in their heads.
Down to 4 points of difference. So that's good. Key thing for me looking at that is with their result is all of last season, because of the Bolingoli situation, we were miles of points behind and we're always playing catch up. So far this season, they pretty much always played the early game. So if they've had a midday, we've had the 3 p.m. Or they played the day before. So this was like the first time this season I can remember us playing the day before them and being able to put a bit of pressure or perceived pressure on them in terms of they're still ahead, but we've won a game, so it's only 3-point margin. Now the pressure's on. And first time that's happened this season, they dropped some points. And realistically, they were lucky for McGregor to still stay on the pitch and that not to be a penalty. Glass was right. They could have had 2 penalties in that game. Disgusting refereeing, but at the end of the day, who cares? They dropped points.
Yeah, but when I seen it at full speed, actually, like my first viewing of it, I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of, it kind of looks like he's, because the guy's stretching, it looks like he's maybe just lost his balance. But then when you see the replay, McGregor's got form for doing that. He's an absolute animal. And yeah, he does it. He got a ban last year for doing it against Aberdeen when he came out with his studs. And the other thing that I noticed was that Morelos has came back in his usual post-winter break fitness levels with his extra chins blossoming. And Kemar Roof, again, also seems to have found his injury-riddled form that meant he never made it at Leeds United. Because I asked my friend, who's a Leeds fan, about that. And a brilliant player, but he's always injured. That's what he said. So surprised he's gone
this long. We didn't sign him, Sean. When we
exactly.
It was actually the reason.
Yeah, and he's got a shocking injury history. And so maybe he's just finally paying the piper on that one. And yeah, maybe they also, without Aribo, they seem to struggle. He seems to be their best player this year. So with him away, maybe we're better to just play this game because Nigeria look like they're going to go deep in the African Cup of Nations.
You look at it, sorry, Liam, before you say that.
Go ahead, yeah. Go
Our
ahead.
Japanese boys probably look like they're not going to be called up. So it'll be Rogic out for us, Aribo out for them. Who's the bigger loss for which team? Let's be completely take the green tinted specs off, take the blinkers off. The way we currently play and the way we are playing and the way Rangers are playing, if Rangers are missing Aribo and we're missing Rogic, who's going to be the bigger loss for their team in the derby on the 2nd of Feb? I'll go
Well,
to
I
you
could
first.
see Maeda being out with Kyogo's injury, so Maeda could get called up to replace Kyogo. So that would leave us with Giakoumakis up front. And I actually thought he looked good last night. And what the thing that I messaged you guys in the group chat was, apart from the fact that he looked good, touch was good, he was putting in the effort. Like, he touched the ball more times than Maeda did when he was on the pitch, just because he plays with his back to goal, as opposed to the Maeda, Kyogo, who are facing goal. And sometimes you just need to mix it up a bit. So even if Maeda gets called up, then in Giakoumakis, I'd be happy as long as Jota is out there.
What I was going to say a minute ago was that when I said earlier that I think we'll win the league, I'm basing that on at the start of the season I said to you guys, I think if you remember, if we go into the New Year game against Rangers and we are 6 points or less behind them, we'll win the league. That was my prediction. And we're now looking at 4 points, maybe even less. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? Right, we've still got a couple of games before then. But we've got two league games before we play them now, haven't we?
One?
I'll get the thing.
No, I'm sure
Right.
We've got our both.
Right, we've got the cup game next weekend,
Alloa
but then I
as
think there's a midweek game after that.
Yeah, having a look. We got Hearts.
Hearts and
Just waiting for it
Dundee
to load.
United.
Hearts,
Right.
Dundee United, and then
Aye,
that mob.
because it's like Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. Then we play them the Wednesday. Aye. So yeah, if we are still within, the 4 points as it is now, I'm confident we're going to beat them and then go on to win the league, because their bottle is well and truly going to crash. There was already signs of it last night, and they only dropped 2 points to Aberdeen. And you'd think the world had imploded the way they were all going mental on Facebook this morning.
Is that entertaining?
Oh,
I do-
God, it was brilliant.
I have to agree with you, Liam. I do think there is. I thought 6 points was quite a steep mountain to climb, to be honest.
Okay.
But I think personally, I think the next game is massive between us and them. I think I don't know if it's a must win, but it's certainly a must not lose for me anyway. And I think if we lose, you let them build momentum. Because I think we're all right here when we're saying their bottle's starting to crack here. We can start to see it. We saw it towards the end of the break. Now we're starting to see it, even more so now. And especially if, like you're saying, with Aribo away and the big cow and stuff with these big double chins and all that, 100%, if they all start to lose it in their heads, I think there's a good chance we might be able to close the gap. I mean, look, let's just say, touchwood, right? Everyone touchwood, we're to beat them on the 2nd or 3rd during Australia, right? Are we to say that they're not going to draw another game or lose another game between now and the end of the season? I don't think that's true. So, for me, I think that's also a lot of that is saying as well that we're not going to lose or draw. So I think we should just, hopefully we just concentrate on ourselves and our boys don't bottle it or lose it in their heads, and they just keep their momentum going. But
It's going to ebb and flow throughout the whole season, but I'm going to predict now we're going to win the league by about 5 points by the end of the season. That's my prediction.
I have two concerns, one minor, one major, regarding these next 3 league fixtures. One minor one is that in the corresponding previous fixtures, like Tynecastle, Dundee United at Celtic Park, and whenever the last few games we've played them, if you look at previous fixtures, then we've 1 out of 9 points, as in we've got 1 point from 9. Because we lost at Tynecastle, we drew at home to Dundee United, and we've lost to them however many times in a row. Which is a minor, because I think that's we're well away from that kind of form. But my major concern is that even when we've been playing well this year, we've been very profligate, missing chances, and profligacy is crucial in these derby games. If you look at the one where we lost earlier in the season, Edward misses an open goal or whatever it is, a one-on-one with the keeper, sitter. And these, even when you have a good shot and like Alan McGregor scoops it out the top corner or whatever, like taking chances. It doesn't matter how many chances you make in a game against Livingston or St Mirren, but you might make 7 or 8 great chances against them. And if you miss 7 or 8 in a game where you're making 27 chances, that's fine. But if you're only making 7 or 8 overall, you know, you need to be clinical.
Yeah, that's
I'm just
exactly
looking
how
at
I
it.
feel.
I'm just looking at it, Sean, going, I get exactly what you're saying. I'm just hoping it's going to be with one game. It's going to be floodgates. We just got to batter someone. And I could actually see that coming up before the derby, whether it's Hearts, whether it's up at Tannadice, I think the game is. Batter
No,
a
it's
team.
Celtic Park.
Is our place even better? If we go and win one of those two, 4-5-0, we do that. Once we start getting banging and putting those goals in, what's going to happen? We'll start converting. There'll be more belief. The new players will set in more, and we're off to the races. So, yeah, we've been wasteful so far, but I've seen this in the past with Andrew's team, specifically when he was at Victory down here back in the day. First half of the season, they struggled to score. Second half, they were thumping teams 4-5-0 by 4 or 5 goals. So there's history of it.
It's so curious that our league modus operandi or form or whatever is the complete opposite of what we are in Europe. Like in the league, we're absolutely tight at the back and we're very wasteful with chances. Whereas in Europe, we're so clinical, but we're also like completely porous in defence. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Liam, you're probably the best to answer this, right? What is there more details with what is actually going to happen with the Japanese boys? Because I've been hearing different things, and the development seems to be
Right.
every week there's something. I tell you what I'm hearing is so far, right? We might lose all 4 of them potentially.
Right.
The Japanese government are making anyone coming from Europe quarantine for 2 weeks, so we might miss all the Japanese boys for both the Hearts game and the Dundee United game.
Right.
And then we might miss them on the way back. So they might be away for 6 weeks. Is that about right, or are we only going to miss a couple of them? Are they going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks? Like, what's the actual deal?
Right. Okay. So I'll go through this systematically. First of all, the quarantine thing. That is for ordinary non-Japanese residents entering Japan. In the case of footballers, I believe there's an exception whereby it's a 3-day quarantine and then release subject to a negative PCR test, as far as I'm aware. But going back the way to the UK, I believe it's 5 days. Now I could be wrong, but that's as of a week ago. Now the thing is with this, and I don't want to get away talking too much about COVID, right? But I've been reading up a lot on this. The Omicron strain is running rampant through Japan just now, as it was about a month ago in the UK, right? So we're about a month behind America and the UK in terms of how quickly this virus is spreading, right? So we're going to hit the peak probably in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, pretty much just when these fixtures are due to happen. And if that happens, it's possible that the Japan games could get shifted outside of Japan. It did happen previously in this qualifying campaign. I think it was China actually played some of their qualifying games in Qatar or Dubai, one of the Middle Eastern countries. So there is a possibility to do that, which would eliminate the quarantine thing completely. Another possibility is that these players might not get called up. I mean, Kyogo, by all accounts, is not being considered from what I've read over here because his injury means that his biggest priority now is to get fit for the Rangers game. Right? And Japan's manager is the type of manager who's like, I'm not going to pick somebody who hasn't played for his club for a month, even if he's fully fit now. He needs to have a few games back at his club before I can call him up again. You know, he's one of those old school kind of managers. I think that Maeda is not a guaranteed starter for Japan, and neither was Kyogo, to be honest, until he came to Celtic. And even then, he didn't start every game. So Maeda being called up is by no means guaranteed, because obviously Celtic are going to, I'm sure, put home the point, look, please don't call this guy up unless you're actually going to play him, because it causes a lot of issues for us. Hatate and Ideguchi, I believe Ideguchi hasn't played for Japan for about 2 years. He's not been near the squad for the past 2 years. So he's unlikely to be called up anyway. Hatate, I don't know if he's actually played a full international yet, but I know he's been in a couple of squads. So again, he's on the fringes. Zero. Right. He hasn't played. Well then, you know, just because he's moved to now, I'm not talking Celtic down here, but just because a player gets a move to Europe doesn't suddenly make him a walk-in for the Japan international team. And we, you know, Celtic and the JFA, I'm sure we'll be talking about this behind the scenes, because they'll appreciate the importance of Celtic predicament. They do not want any of these players to catch COVID. They do not want any unnecessary hassle. See if Japan had just fucking beaten Oman back in October, this wouldn't even be an issue, because we would have already qualified. But because of the way it is, they need to beat Saudi Arabia now to be sure of qualification. It's sort of a three-way shootout between Australia, Japan, and Saudi Arabia in this group now, with Oman, I think, still having an outside chance. So Japan need to win these next two games to be in a much more comfortable position. So
what we'll do there, Liam, is Sean put some info on our little chat here for us about this. So do you want to go through that quickly, Sean?
Right.
Oh, it wasn't much. I was just saying in terms of what John was asking, they can't, in terms of calling them up early, we don't have to comply with that. If there's a quarantine issue that would preclude them from being, they say they need to be called up early because of quarantine, then we can just say no. Like, if it's not an international window, we just say no. That's the only reason. Like, but I don't even know why FIFA has an international window that's out of line with our season. It's all very confusing to me. But it is to do with the other confederations, isn't it?
The other thing as well, Sean, is there was a FIFA thing, I think it was in November or something, when there was a massive outbreak in South America. And FIFA told the guys, if you're going to lose players who are going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks on the way back, then you don't have to release them.
That's right.
So
EPL ones.
Rangers didn't have to release Morelos because he would have been caught up because he was called up for Colombia. And there was all the Brazilian guys, same sort of deal. There's a few Brazilian guys at Spurs who didn't go, and a few from Arsenal didn't go, and all that sort of stuff for that exact reason. So FIFA's got that current ruling there. If there's a current outbreak live on the ground, like you're saying is in Japan, Liam, and we're within our rights as well as the player's employer, that we don't have to let them go as well.
Right.
Well, that'd be a shame if it did happen. If it had to happen in that circumstance, it'd be a shame, because obviously you want all your players, your internationalists, to play.
It wouldn't be good, considering we're trying to build a good relationship, and we're growing as a club in terms of profile as well in Japan, to then go, no, you can't have your players. It'd be like what Australia went through in the 90s with Leeds, where it was like the club versus country thing. You don't want that. You want everyone pulling in the right direction for the players. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But unless you got anything else to add there, Liam,
just to give a wee bit of context to what I was saying about the COVID thing, I've just got the latest statistics here. So on January 1st, there were 25 reported cases in Tokyo, right? Today, 7,377 new cases.
Yeah, they're a bit behind limits for sure.
Yeah, and that's a 5,200 increase in 1 week.
You know what we call that, Liam? We call that before lunch here in Melbourne.
Is there any quarantine rules for Melbourne? Because that's where the Australia game is.
No.
Nah.
You can come in.
Rogic
As
just
long as
comes
you're
in. And then,
vaccinated, you can come in and go.
yeah.
That's pretty much it.
He's going to be jet lagged as hell because he can only go 3 days, 4 days before. So he's going to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's going to have 2 days to adjust or whatever.
That's right.
Do you know,
No,
honestly,
keep his body clock online. Keep his body clock on Glasgow time because, it's a nighttime game over here, which is what? If it's a nighttime kickoff, it's about an 11 o'clock kickoff over there. So, perfect.
If I was Australia, I'd just be saying, look, just meet us in Oman for the second game. Do you know what I mean? Don't worry about coming to Melbourne because Vietnam at home, surely you don't need all your players for that.
Yeah.
No.
I was contemplating going and I'm like, can't be bothered. It's Vietnam.
Yeah, and Vietnam they lose games by double figures on the regular, don't they? So
Yeah, well.
Japan only beat them 1-0 last time, though.
did they?
Oh.
Yeah.
The only reason I'd want to go would be to try and get Tom Rogic to sign my Celtic Down Under flag. That's pretty much it.
You should definitely try and do that if you can.
That would be
That'd
the
very
only,
good.
or even just give him one to take back with him.
Yeah.
Just please don't become one of those wankers that holds up the card saying, "Tom, can I meet you after the game?"
Yeah, do it.
Liam, two things. I thought you'd know me well enough by now to know that, yet one, I am a wanker already, and two, don't tell me what to do.
There's a reason why we never see your hands during the broadcast. Huh?
I'll talk like this one. Anyway, just want to quickly rattle through a few things before we preview the upcoming game. So there was this narrative going into the winter break being moved forward that it was designed to help Celtic, get players back, get players in before, rather than being for health and safety purposes. All I want to say is anyone who still believes that, you're an absolute flog. Seriously, yes, we've benefited because we got some players back, but how good was it to have full crowd at the game on Monday night? It's the shit out of playing that game in front of 500 people 3 weeks ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a nice, big, massive work event.
So the way I look at it,
Big wedding.
the way I look at it is it's got nothing to do. You can talk your conspiracies all you want, put your tinfoil hats on all you want, wear your blue tinted specs all you want, guys, but over there who are probably going to listen in and give me shit online for this, but it's an absolute load of shit, and I don't want to hear that anymore. Lee Griffiths finally released by Celtic. I think we've discussed this enough in the past. In terms of all the stuff off the pitch, I don't even want to talk about. In terms of how many years he was at the club, 124 goals or whatever he scored for us. Thanks for the memories. All the best with the future, with your future endeavours, and good luck. That's pretty much it from me. I know what you guys thought on that is.
Yeah, I just hope he gets better, to be honest. He's clearly still an ill person. You know what I mean? So
I hope he gets a move. I hope he gets a move far away from Scotland. Go to the US, go to China, go to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something. Go somewhere where he'll make plenty of money and he can focus just on playing football and nothing else. Because that's what he needs. There's too many bad influences in Scotland for him.
And seem to be a little bit selfish. I hope he gets back to his old forms for the Scotland squad, to be honest.
Yeah.
He won't. He's 31 now, and from by all accounts, he's saying he just doesn't train. So if you remember back to when Neil Lennon wasn't giving him a game, and Griffiths was coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, I need actual games to get match fitness," and then Chris Commons turns around and goes, "Nah, Griffiths just doesn't do anything Monday to Friday." Basically, the only way Griffiths gets fitness is if he's playing games because he's not going to train on his own. And when you get to 31, if you're not going to train, you're not going to be fit. If you're only showing up on a Wednesday and a Saturday, you've no chance.
You won't even get an MLS club making an offer if that's the case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He might retire. He might just pack it all in, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's got to keep all that money coming in because he's got so much child support to keep paying. So he's got to keep the money coming in somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Last thing I wanted to touch on, boys, was I don't know if you saw the article. It was through a report done by the CIES Football Observatory. They have examined all games in Scottish football in the top flight from the start of the 2018-19 season through to January 10th. So what the report was on the amount of penalties conceded and received in Scottish top-flight football. And the stats are a lot worse than I thought they were and a lot one-sided. So Rangers receive a number one on the list in terms of getting a penalties. 1 every 363 minutes of football. Second is Hibs in every 454 minutes. That's how one-sided it is. Followed by Aberdeen and Celtic, joining third, 1 every 540 minutes. So when you go through it, and then they've got this thing called big chance, which is, I don't quite understand it. So compared to the number of penalties handed out compared to the number of big chances created to score, Hibs come out on top with a spot with a penalty for every 25 scoring opportunities they create.
Right. I guess that's based on the assumption that most penalties are going to come about as a result of a goal mouth incident.
Yep. So with that in mind, Hibs is one every 25%, Aberdeen 26%, St Johnson 28%, and you go through it all. Rangers 1 every 32% chances, 1 every 32 shots, and then us 1 every 49. So that's just
almost a 50-50.
Yeah. So it means every 49 shots that we create, scoring opportunity, we get a penalty. Every 25 Hibs do, they get a penalty. Every 32 Rangers do. So it's a lot worse than I thought it was in terms of when you look at the minute side of it. Rangers are getting a penalty every 363 minutes, and we're at 540. Yeah, I knew our referees were bad, but that's pretty out there.
I don't
Shocking.
think I'm surprised.
Yeah, shocking but not surprising. Like, my hope is that this report will result in a correction, conscious or unconscious, by the referees, and therefore we might get a cheeky penalty when Sevco come to town.
Well, it was funny you say that, Sean, because I actually read on, I think it was on Monday afternoon when this report first came to light. Some Rangers supporter on Twitter was like, "Oh, that'll be all the conspiracy theorists. Now just you watch. They'll get a penalty tonight, then we'll get one game given against us tomorrow." And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah, all that luck might have run out, Sean, and it might have just been last night's penalty. That's it gone now.
It just ties in well, doesn't it?
I mean, look, do we? I don't know. Do we expect much different if all of the refs are pretty well-known Rangers fans? I mean, Sean's right. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, they're clearly going to have a bias to the team that they support. Look, it needs to be. Nothing's changing. This report's going to change nothing. It's not going to change the SFA's opinion. It's not going to change the Lanarkshire's Ref Association's opinion. They're just going to continue on the status quo. It needs to be real systemic change within the whole of Scottish football for actual positive outcomes to happen. It's just going to continue as it is. There's so many issues. Part-time refs is a big one.
I'll just roll out my line that I always say whenever someone tries to say that referees aren't biased. Well, it's scientifically proven that human beings have unconscious bias. So if you're saying referees aren't biased, you're saying they're not human beings.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good affirmation for the other, though, isn't it? They're probably not human.
So here's the follow-on for you guys. They crunch the numbers for every referee. If you're after a penalty, you want Bobby Madden as your ref. He's given away the most since then. He gives a penalty 1 every 3 league matches. And if you don't want a penalty, Don Robertson's your ref because he gives one out every 7.5 matches.
Huh. That's quite stark.
Madden's been switched to be the ref.
Yeah, we've got him. Yeah.
We've got him for the
derby.
The Orcs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Season ticket holder, Ibrox.
Do we think Madden, is he a Rangers fan?
Yeah, he's a season ticket holder.
Is he? That's right. Yeah, he's in that secret lodge as well. I think I've heard.
No, he's not even secret. No, he was in the same supporters bus as Ali McCoy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Jesus Christ. So he's going to give. Yeah, so there's a good chance he's given a penny against. So let's be honest. That's just.
I mean, I'll never. The one I never forget was when Willie Collum gave one when he was looking in the opposite direction, and he's supposed to be a Celtic fan.
Supposed to be one of us, apparently. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and he gave one when he didn't even see it happen, when he was looking the other direction. And so, I like, what do you do with that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look,
Willie,
like I said,
Willie and Bobby, both euphemisms in Glasgow for cocks. I think that says it all.
I think we'll leave the referee talk there. Liam summed it up perfect. There you go. All right, so we've got a game on the weekend in the Scottish Cup against Alloa Athletic. So what we'll do is I'll say a couple of named players that they've got there that I've had a look at, and then what we'll do is we'll go around quickly. What lineup do you think? What do you think will be our starting lineup and score predictions? So the only 3 players whose names jump out to me when I look at it is they've got Connor Salmon up front. They've got, I think it's John Robertson playing for them. I've heard of his name before. And then there's one other guy that I actually had a little message with on Instagram a little while back. Daniel Church used to play at Celtic.
Oh, yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
He was one I was a
Defender.
big fan of, but then he got injured and never got his breakthrough. So yeah, it'll be good to see him play again. But at the same time, I hope we absolutely pants them. For me, I just want to get minutes into guys. So I'd like to see Giakoumakis get a fair chunk of game time. I wouldn't mind Kelmack out and Itaguchi in. But other than that, I want to keep a pretty stable back 4 and goalkeeper. But you can muck around with other guys from the midfield and forward to get minutes into them. What would you like to see, John? What's your starting lineup?
Well, I'd like to see something similar to what you're saying. I don't want to change it too much. I think there's a couple of. I think the most interesting one is, do we see Julian start in this game? Is this the perfect game for where he's coming back from a long injury, where he can play? Maybe he doesn't play the whole game. Maybe he only plays 45 minutes. Maybe he plays 60 minutes. But I think it's a big game to see him start. Jota, likewise. I think if Jota's starting to get fitness back, I'd like to see him get as many minutes as he can get into him. And then look, potentially Bain to give Hart a rest and stuff. He plays a lot, but I wouldn't want to muck it about too much. I'd expect the Japanese boys to play. I'd expect that just to get them settled in and stuff. But I probably wouldn't see McGregor getting rested for this. I would say you still need your captain, a bit of a level head. He might come off. McCarthy might come on later on, something like that.
All right, John, I'll change that then. Keep McGregor in, push him into the 10, bring Rogic out. Done.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Yeah. A bit of rotation. I'd see some of the ones coming back from injury starting. And then you might even see some of the boys getting 20 minutes, 15 minutes, like Moffat and Dawson.
Liam, what are you thinking?
I agree. Leave the defence and the keeper alone. Leave that as is. Midfield. I would play McGregor simply because I think bringing him in for Itaguchi, if your captain drops out, you want to bring in another experienced player, and Itaguchi's only going to be in his second appearance at that point. So I would possibly shift it around a wee bit. I'd go McGregor, Hatate, and then you've got one of 3 options of Turnbull, Rogic, or Itaguchi.
Turnbull's still hurt until Feb, so that rules him out.
Right, sorry, I forgot about that. Aye. Right, well then you get the option of resting Rogic then, if you want to give Itaguchi more game time. But my front 3, I want to see, assuming we have to manage his fitness obviously carefully, but I'd like to see Jota, Maeda, and either Abada or Forrest. That'd be my front 3 that I'd want to see. I'm going on the assumption that Kyogo's still going to be out for a while as well. That hasn't been officially confirmed, but all the indicators are that if we do see Kyogo, it's likely not to be for another couple of weeks.
And Sean?
Yeah, I'm a bit different from you guys. I'd like to see wholesale changes. It's a plastic pitch. They've got Barry Ferguson as a manager, so they're going to be putting the boot in. So I could see a couple of injuries eventuating. So I'd like to have an hour from Giakoumakis. I'd like to see Mikey Johnston playing. Basically, look at the bench from the Hibs game, and all of them should be on the pitch.
Get a back
That's
pairing
my-
of Scales and Welsh then. Sounds good.
Yeah, maybe something like that. But I don't know if Julian's going to be.
I wouldn't even, if it's plastic pitch, I wouldn't even put Julian on. How bad does he play at
Mm.
Livingston on a plastic pitch? No thanks.
Yeah, still, Dane Murray, whatever. But like, yeah, I think we should have enough quality with the backups, and I would like to avoid injuries. And look, if we're struggling, we can just bring on the big guns half an hour to go when Alo are tired. That just makes sense to me.
Fair enough. So score predictions, John.
I don't think it's going to be a big score. I think probably 2 or 3-0. Or maybe not 3-0. 2-0. I'll go 2-0.
Liam,
4-0.
Sean.
2-0.
I said we've got a pumper team. Why not them? Let's go 6-0.
Plastic pitch. That's why.
That's all right. That's all right.
Slightly
Still for laugh. Nah, realistically, probably 3-0. I don't care at the end of the day. As long it's a cup competition, it's all about getting the win. So as long as there's no injuries and we win, who really cares what the margin is?
Yep.
But I would like to absolutely thump a team. So if we do beat them 6-0, perfect. But a win's a win at the end of the day. So what we'll do, guys, we'll go to our final thoughts to end the podcast. So I'll start with you, Sean. What's your final thought?
My final thought. Yeah,
Do you
just
want
glad
thinking
to.
time? I can go to Liam or John.
No, I'm just glad to see fans back at the stadium. Yeah, and it's particularly sweet given that it actually happened and that just like absolutely burst all the handbag clutching from the Sevco supporters and media cheerleaders who didn't want it to happen because there's no guarantee the fans will be back. Well, here they are. Get it up, you, and the fans have won the day.
Yep.
John?
My final thought is more of a call out. This year is the 40th anniversary of the Sydney City CSC. So if there's any Celtic fans from Sydney that want to participate and go along, there's a ball and there's a river cruise and there's all the good booze and events. So yeah, look, just get yourself involved if you want. You can buy tables and stuff, but yeah, it'd be good to see all the friendly faces from Celtic fans around Sydney. It's going to be sometime. The date's not yet 100% confirmed, but it's going to be sometime towards the August-ish period.
Well, Liam, we'll let you go last because, you know, that's the usual position when it comes to the final thoughts. Because so, anyone on YouTube, you'll see I'm wearing a brown t-shirt. This is a tribute to Aussie, former Celtic player who came through it, who's an Aussie from Melbourne, Jackson Irvin, the second division team in Germany who knocked Dortmund out of the German Cup. So go to St. Pauli, get it up here, get it up Dortmund. Now Dortmund, I want you guys to win now and knock Rangers out, and then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna leave you with a wee inspirational quote that I saw on the internet last week. Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes. Because afterwards, who cares? You're a mile away from him and you've got his shoes.
All right, guys. Thanks for getting involved again. Everyone, please subscribe through the through YouTube podcast app and get on the socials and give us a follow. How?
Hello.
Job it.